Okay, this is going to be a review of TNA Turning Point 2005. This show took place December 11th, 2005 at the Impact Zone. I can't find an official pay-per-view buy rate, but I would assume it's probably in the 20,000 to 25,000 range. But yeah, I would say this is definitely up there. This would be my pick for best TNA pay-per-view of 2005 and possibly the best TNA pay-per-view that they've ever done. You know, eventually I want to do a list of the top 20 TNA pay-per-views. So, you know, I'm not quite sure yet, but this would definitely be, you know, near the top of that list. But just to give you some perspective, on the message board I used to post on, you know, back in the day, this actually won pay-per-view of the year at the end of the year. It dominated the poll. The problem is, I think sometimes when you do a poll or, you know, sometimes with the pay-per-view in December or matches that happen at the end of the year, you're kind of like a prisoner of the moment. I think that's what happened with Turning Point 2005. I also think the same thing probably happened on TNA's website. They had a match of the year voting, and I believe Sabu and Abyss, the barbed wire match, actually won match of the year for 2005. So that's another case where, you know, maybe the voting has to do with just, you know, recency bias. And then on top of that, I do remember in 2006, there was a match of the year poll for TNA, and Angle versus Joe from Turning Point dominated that poll as well. So, you know, maybe that's the same situation where just because it just happened, it's fresh in people's minds, so they'll vote for it. But yeah, I think what is a fact though, and what is, I think what most people would agree on, if you're a diehard TNA fan, was that 2005 was by far the best year, you know, in the actual ring. So if this won pay-per-view of the year in 2005, that should definitely make it the best TNA pay-per-view of all time. But I'm a little bit hesitant to crown it as that because there's some stuff on the show that I was a little bit underwhelmed by. However, though, there is some amazing stuff on here, and I thought a lot of it has aged extremely well. But let's get right into it. Okay, so first match of the night, the Barbed Wire Massacre. Like I was saying, guys, this actually won TNAWrestling.com's match of the year. So the fans actually voted this over the Unbreakable Triple Threat as match of the year, believe it or not. I don't think that's really aged that well, but it was good though, man. I thought this was great stuff. Sabu and Abyss, I love the combination. I really like their match at Unbreakable. This was even a step up from that. You know, Sabu has done these type of matches in ECW. I think he did one with Terry Funk at a show called Born to Be Wired. Yeah, the match is brutal and everything, but I just found it hard to watch. Like if you were eating something that was going to make you sick, it might have made you throw up. Just the scene with I think it was Terry Funk just wrapped up in the barbed wire. It was almost tough to actually look at. But I thought this was good, man. It was short, it was sweet. It didn't like there wasn't any of those moments that featured it dragging. I just thought, you know, they sliced each other up. You know, the spots were quick, and you know, the crowd was hot for it. It definitely had a unique feel for an Impact Zone pay-per-view, and they actually, man, I'll tell you, they used this board of barbed wire, and they did some really, really creative stuff with it. You know, Sabu actually took a gorilla press from Abyss in midair, and then he lands on the barbed wire. Abyss just plants Sabu in the middle of the ropes. So the ropes are all barbed wire here, just to be clear. And, you know, Sabu's pants just get totally shredded from the barbed wire. So, yeah, I mean, they did some creative stuff, man. The ending was cool with Abyss being sandwiched between the two boards of barbed wire. And, you know, Sabu basically does a senton splash on it. And, yeah, I thought this was great stuff, man. Once again, this is another pay-per-view where it really kind of appealed to the old school ECW fans. Up and down the card, you just had ECW, you know, former champions, former legends just competing on the show. And this was tailor-made for Sabu. So, yeah, I thought Sabu's run in TNA was very good. Eventually, he would go to WWE and the ECW version of it. But while this lasted, this whole 05-06 run for Sabu was now, from what I've seen, it's definitely one of the better runs of his career, without a doubt. So, yeah, and just looking at Abyss's arms, I mean, they were totally sliced up. You just see so many lacerations. So, it was a rough night, man. A rough night for the company. A lot of guys put their bodies on the line, and ended up in the hospital that night. So once again, I just want to illustrate that, this is a pay-per-view where I felt like the whole roster just laid it all on the line. And then from there, it was cool because, it's almost like you had a little bit of an intermission. And then when when they restructured the ring and put the ropes back up, you just got a really good showcase match. A little bit too short here. If you were a diehard Ring of Honor fan, you would find this disappointing. But for what it was, I thought it was really good. You got Austin Aries teaming up with Matt Bentley. Matt Bentley used to wrestle in Ring of Honor back in the day as Michael Shane. He's actually Shawn Michaels' cousin. So he wasn't in Ring of Honor at the time. So it definitely felt like he was the odd man out. And it kind of felt like TNA kind of booked the match around him just to make him look good. He's actually out there with Tracy Brooks. So it's Aries and Bentley taking on Alex Shelley and Roderick Strong. So you got 3 out of the 4 guys from Generation Next here. Shelley and Strong have teamed together plenty of times. This was good stuff. This is when Shelley came out with the tripod. Highlight of the match is Shelley gives, I believe it's Aries, he gives him a power bomb into Roderick Strong's knee. It's like a power bomb backbreaker spot from Shelley and Strong. So yeah, anytime Strong was in Ring of Honor teaming up with Jack or Alex Shelley, I thought they got very creative together. I mean, they could have gotten a lot more out of Austin Aries here, but Matt Bentley gets the hot tag, ends up going over with the super kick. Shades of HBK and Shawn Michaels right there. So good stuff. I felt like it could have been a little bit better. It kind of felt like a showcase match. Could have been a little bit more thrown. It felt a little thrown together, but it didn't feel like a tryout match. Like my problem with the Aries and Strong match from Unbreakable, that felt like a tryout match. This felt a little bit more structured than that, but it was good. It was a good way to shift back into the rest of the card. Next up, you got Raven taking on Chris K. All right, so Chris K is actually Chris Canyon. I'm not sure why they couldn't use his name here. But I thought this was good. Well, once again, you got another former ECW legend out there going up against, Canyon from WCW. They did a Dark Side of the Ring on Canyon last year, which was very well done. And by the way, I think Dark Side of the Ring, they're actually... They're re-airing season 1 on Vice right now, so it's pretty cool. That might have something to do with the Montreal Screwjob. I did say that they should make Dark Side of the Ring a little bit more accessible, so that's definitely good stuff right there. I think there's only 6 episodes from season 1, but yeah, Chris Canyon was good here, man. He was good. He didn't get to show a lot of offense here, but I thought he sold very well for Raven. The match was definitely, good stuff. It didn't drag at all. I thought this was good. It was good. Raven was actually feuding with Larry Zbyszko here, so he got the win. It was short. It was sweet, and really kind of progressed the heat that Raven and Zbyszko had. I just thought they did some good stuff on the mic together. So, and then we move on to Team Canada taking on the 4 Live crew. So you got Team Canada of A1 Bobby Roode, Eric Young, and Petey Williams, and they're taking on BG James, Kip James, who's Billy Gunn and Road Dogg. Also a Conan, and you got Ron the Truth Killings out there. Okay, so the most memorable thing of this match, it was actually going along great. For a Billy Gunn match in TNA, I thought this was going fine. I thought that the Team Canada guys were actually bumping really well for Billy Gunn. But at the end of the match, Conan actually swerves everybody and clocks Billy Gunn with the steel chair and turns on Billy Gunn. He turns on BG James as well. The only guy he's cool with is Ron Killings. So it's kind of the start of the whole Conan, leaving the crew, and eventually he's going to, start up LAX down the road. So it kind of set the tone for that. But yeah, Team Canada would get involved heavily in the main event, but it was cool while it lasted. And then we move on to a 6-man tag match. This is the baseball match. So you got Chris Sabin, Dale Torborg of the Chicago White Sox, and you got Sonjay Dutt. I believe Torborg actually used to be a wrestler before he became a baseball player. There were some really good heated promos with Diamond in the Rough, just criticizing him for, kind of, you couldn't make it in our sport, so you had to, go to another sport, that type of thing there. So they're with AJ Przinsky. AJ Przinsky was actually the catcher of the White Sox. So yeah, I mean, this was cool. The White Sox are actually coming off of winning the World Series. They actually beat the Astros. I guess that's when the Astros were in the National League. They're actually in the American League now. So the Astros and the White Sox would never meet in the World Series today. But yeah, that's a World Series I don't remember. I don't think I watched any of it. I believe Frank Thomas was actually on the White Sox, but, he wasn't the megastar that he was back in the 90s. Frank Thomas he's the big hurt. He's actually on the halftime show with A-Rod. So I apologize if you're not a baseball fan, but, the bottom line is the White Sox finally won the World Series for the first time since, I believe, the Black Sox scandal back in the 1920s. So it's a big deal. It was a huge opportunity for TNA to get publicity. There's a Sports Illustrated with Tom Brady on the cover where they mention that, AJ Przinsky and the White Sox are going to be involved in TNA, and TNA was actually printed in Sports Illustrated. So once again, this is Jeff Jarrett just trying to get, TNA more publicity. He did this a lot of different times over the years with the Tennessee Titans and so many different times. I mean, some people are going to have mixed feelings on it, but I don't blame Jarrett for doing this because you got the White Sox, the World Series champions, and they're willing to come into TNA. That's got to be great for the company. So looking back on it, I was actually fine with it. It was cool. So they're taking on the Diamonds in the Rough of David Young, Eli Skipper, and Simon Diamond. These guys aren't great in the ring. I thought there was some really good mic work from them, leading up to this match, but it was cool. Sabin and Sonjay Dutt were awesome here. They really kind of carried this match and made it memorable. I didn't think Eli Skipper was great here. He actually almost dropped Sonjay on his head. So it was a little bit clunky at some parts, but yeah, it was cool. This was really just Sabin and Sonjay just kind of going out there and, trying to hide the weaknesses of the celebrities and just making the best of it. So, and then they gave the White Sox guys their own TNA rings. So it was great for TNA, great publicity. Wasn't a great match though, but it was for a celebrity match. I thought it was acceptable. It was cool. Okay, next up we have the #1 contenders match for the NWA World Title. You got Christian Cage taking on Monty Brown. Okay, so these two guys worked a lot together. After Christian won the belt, I think his first title defense was against Monty Brown. So this is their first match on pay-per-view together. But yeah, Christian going to TNA, from Jarrett's standpoint, it was a no-brainer. Part of the reason is it wasn't that expensive. Christian was in the area. I think he lives in Tampa. So it's not like they had to fly him in. He could just drive to the Impact Zone tapings, and it wasn't a big deal in terms of, spending a lot of money on Christian. They spent nowhere near the amount of money that they spent on Sting and Kurt Angle. But I think from Christian's standpoint, I think he made a mistake. I really feel like, when you go back to the spring of 2005, I feel like Christian really got himself over. I felt like, him and Cena had some real heat together, and you definitely had a lot of potential there. When Christian got drafted to SmackDown, I do remember, he lost to Booker T, and then he was a little bit baffled at the direction he was going. Then he chose not to re-sign. I think a lot of it had to do with Jericho. I think he kind of saw Jericho was taking a break, and I think he wanted to do the same thing. But the difference is Jericho was already a main event of WrestleMania. He had been champion. I think Jericho definitely needed the break, but Christian kind of took the break when he was finally getting that momentum. I think had he signed a long-term deal, they probably would have booked him a little bit better on SmackDown. But, I think regardless, though, I think Christian was good for TNA. You could make the argument that a guy like Monty Brown and, and some of these other guys should have been pushed over Christian. But when I look at Christian's body of work in TNA, there's really not a lot you can complain about. I thought the matches always delivered. I thought his promos were definitely strong. And, for the short amount of time that he was there, I thought it was definitely, a situation where I think he elevated the company. I think even Kurt Angle would even say that he really took TNA a lot more serious because of Christian. So there we go with that. But yeah, I don't know. With Monty Brown in this situation, I think Monty's got a lot of charisma. I think he's got a lot of potential. With him, though, it kind of felt to me like he wasn't, that committed to TNA. I know he's a former football player, a personal trainer. It's almost baffling that he would do the job for Christian out of the blue. But that's what happened here. And it also happened again after Christian won the belt. I got to say, though, I thought Monty was a little bit awkward here. Christian put his body on the line. He took a lot of bumps here. They really did put together a pretty engaging match. I just felt like Monty in this spot, you almost just get the feeling that his heart just wasn't in it because, he's putting over the enemy. He's putting over a WWE guy, so you have that in the back of your mind. But I thought they worked well together. I think this was definitely a nice tone setter for Christian. The fans really did get behind him when he came into the company. His promo style was almost like The Rock. The Rock and Christian, they actually did a lot of stuff together backstage when The Rock was Hollywood Rock. And you almost get the feeling that Christian, a lot of him playing up to the crowd from the locker room or from backstage was definitely inspired by a lot of the stuff that The Rock taught him. So definitely good stuff. Christian goes over with the Unprettier after Monty actually hits the exposed turnbuckle after the full Nelson goes awry. So good, but not definitely not a great matchup. I can't say the chemistry was great here. Okay, next up we have the Dudleys. In TNA, they're known as Team 3D, Brother Devon and Brother Ray, taking on America's Most Wanted, Chris Harris and James Storm. And this is the tables match. So AMW is the tag team champions. So it kind of makes sense. You can have a tables match. You don't have to have the titles on the line. This way you could give Team 3D the win in their first, pay-per-view match. So it does make sense from that standpoint. So yeah, so the Dudleys are gone from WWE. I can't remember when their last match was. I do remember Taz was extremely disappointed that WWE didn't make them a contract offer. I can't blame WWE. I think the Dudleys, at a certain point, they became extremely stale. Even in 2002, I mean, there's a reason they split them up and tried to make it work as singles guys with different gimmicks. But yeah, somehow, some way, they just always kind of brought them back together. But after you win the tag team titles a million times, it's like, where do you go from there? So yeah, they came into Bound for Glory. I think they helped Rhino beat Jarrett, and AMW interfered in that match. So that's kind of where the feud was born at. AMW wanted to beat them at their own game, so to make it a tables match, it was okay. Very brutal stuff. There was 2 table bumps here. It was a sweep. Dudleys didn't go through any tables. Both table bumps ended up being taken by AMW. The first one was really nasty. James Storm actually took the finisher. So, anytime you're asking the other team to do a finisher, maybe it's a little bit too risky. So Devon actually does AMW's finisher. It's like that guillotine leg drop through the table. It just looked like Devon sat on his head, and maybe his neck got jarred a little bit, and James Storm was slow to get up, and he actually got a standing ovation after the match was over. So yeah, that was a really nasty bump right there. He was legit knocked out, I believe. And then Chris Harris actually took a 3D right by the entranceway, which was another table bump that just didn't look pretty. Yeah, so not a pretty match, not a fluid match. There's lots of times in the match where AMW is trying to go for the pinfall, and then the referee is just saying, no, it's a tables match. So yeah, I mean, this is an example of a tables match that didn't hit a home run, but I get why they did it. You want to give the Dudleys that feel-good victory on their first, TNA pay-per-view match. So there we go. But, I'm just not a huge Dudley fan. I know they're on the cover of the DVD here or the poster here, but I don't know. I've never been the biggest Dudley fan, but the silver lining of them going to TNA is, I think, long-term, it was very good for Bubba Ray Dudley, Brother Ray. He's going to be getting a title shot against Josh Alexander at the next Impact pay-per-view called Hard to Kill. And, he really kind of found himself on the mic over the years. So, I believe he actually main evented Bound for Glory against AJ. So, but yeah, probably the most disappointing match of the night. I had a tough time even breaking it down and talking about it, because it just wasn't pretty, and you never want to see anybody get hurt. So there we go with that. All right, next up we have the match of the night, and arguably probably one of the best, maybe the best one-on-one TNA match of all time. Obviously, we know the Unbreakable Three-Way is the best TNA match of all time. Most people would say number 2 would be the Triple X. Was it Triple X versus AMW, the 6 Sides of Steel at Turning Point 2004? Will probably be number 2. But I got to say, I don't know if you could find the singles match better than this. Maybe some of the AJ and Daniels matches would definitely come close. But yeah, for the X Division champion, we got AJ Styles defending the belt against Samoa Joe. Awesome match. This is where Joe wins the X Division belt. This is by far the best Joe and AJ match. There's only 3 Samoa Joe matches I will put over this. The Kabashi match, the Unbreakable Three-Way, and the second match against CM Punk, Joe versus Punk 2. But to me, this is by far, this is even better than Joe versus Punk 1. Definitely more satisfying, more hard hitting than that. I will put this over a lot of matches that Joe had. So the match is great. It's great stuff. Joe was extremely stiff here. Just attacking AJ with stiff ass kicks. AJ got Joe off of his feet, several times. Just a masterful combination right here. This blows the WWE matches that they had out of the water. This even takes a shit on the matches that they had in Ring of Honor. It's such an amazing match, and I gotta say, I know the Dudleys are on the cover here, but goddamn, man, how awesome would that have been if AJ actually goes for the Fosbury flop and he hits Joe with it? That would have been an awesome cover for Turning Point, because he's turning his body in midair. So the pay-per-view is called Turning Point. So I thought that would have been an awesome shot for the cover right there. But just the sequencing here, AJ actually countering the Muscle Buster into the Styles Clash, Joe kicking out of the Styles Clash. That might have been the first time I think anyone's ever kicked out of the Styles Clash. The ending here is just sweet. It's sweet as hell. Not to mention AJ hit Joe with some stiff ass Pele kicks here, and I got to say the match that they had on Sacrifice, it's pretty close too. They showed some highlights from the Sacrifice match. I got to say the strikes in the Sacrifice match, really make that match memorable. You don't have the kind of strikes that you had there that you had here, but I just thought the finishing sequence here was just a little bit more well executed. I think it was Joe. He actually throws the referee into the ropes, and AJ actually gets a roll up on Joe. Joe actually transitions from almost being pinned from the roll up into the Chiquita clutch, and then AJ passes out. And the ending is just so well done. Joe's about to just annihilate AJ just like he did to Daniels at Genesis, and then Christopher Daniels comes out of nowhere, turns babyface, and sets up the revenge match against Samoa Joe at Final Resolution. So yeah, great stuff. I think Joe winning the X Division title was huge for the company. I thought it was really good for the X Division title. It kind of made it seem like, it just wasn't, limited, to high flyers or cruiserweights, but you could have, a Samoan beast actually become X Division champion, kind of going along with, it's a no limit title. The X Division has no limits. So you love that about the match. And I really do feel like this is the match that puts the pay-per-view over the top. And I really think Joe really kind of proved here that he could really sell pay-per-views. I feel like when you look at the TNA pay-per-view buy rates, I feel like a lot of times where you had Joe and something that was well promoted and well presented, that those pay-per-views always got a boost. So yeah, this is definitely a great match, definitely the match of the night, and one of the best TNA matches of all time, possibly the best one-on-one TNA match of all time. I would definitely put it above the Sacrifice match, but the match that they have from Sacrifice in August of 2005, it's really not far behind. It's really good stuff. I think this is a little bit more historical with Joe winning the belt and Daniel's face turn. I think the ending was probably just a little bit more well executed. And, there was more of a story here with AJ really kind of, standing up for Daniels, after all the wars that they've been through. So that kind of factors into it there. The Sacrifice is a little bit of a different dynamic with Daniels being the prick, being the heel, kind of, antagonizing both guys as they were wrestling. So I just thought this had a little bit more of a stronger babyface versus heel dynamic, no doubt about it. And then the main event for the NWA World Championship, we got Jeff Jarrett defending against Rhino. I thought this was good. I thought this delivered. I think Rhino could be hit or miss. The same thing with like the Dudleys. I think the Dudleys, potentially are a little bit more stale than Rhino at times. But I think Rhino could be hit or miss. I think Rhino's been through these phases in his career where he's been really over, just really, he could be hot as a missile. Going into TLC 2 at WrestleMania 17 be an example of that. But then there's been other points where he's just been kind of stale as shit. Around the time he was tagging with Tajiri in 2004. So yeah, they really did a good job of, playing into Rhino's real life situation here. So for those that don't remember, he actually got fired WrestleMania 21 weekend. And Christian kind of took a shot at Rhino here in the video package. Christian basically said, I'm not here because I got fired. I'm here to see wrestling reinvented. So you almost get the feeling that Christian took a shot at Rhino there, but the bottom line is this is a great redemption story for Rhino. I felt like at Bound for Glory, they did a really nice job of, building him up. He won the Monsters Ball. He won the Battle Royal. He won the NWA World title at Bound for Glory. And then I believe it was on the first Spike TV taping. Jeff Jarrett actually won it back. So that's one of the criticisms against Jarrett. I think Jarrett always felt like every sort of milestone, whether it's pay-per-view, 3-hour pay-per-views, or the Fox Sports deal or the Spike TV deal, Jarrett always felt like he had to make himself champion just to kind of set the tone for the new direction of the company. So I definitely understand that. But yeah, I thought this was good stuff, man. It was definitely a little bit overbooked. It's not going to be for everybody here. Like, if you don't like a lot of interference and a lot of shenanigans and guys brawling all over the arena, you might not like the match. Tons of interference from Team Canada. So like I was saying, guys, Jarrett was always in cahoots with a lot of the top heel factions like AMW, Team Canada, guys like that. So there's just a ton of interference from all members of Team Canada, from Scott D'Amore to Robert Roode to Eric Young. But I got to say, I thought the match really did a beautiful job of playing to Rhino's strengths. It almost had an ECW type of feel to it. Yeah, I mean, they are brawling all over the arena for the first half of the match. There is an awesome spot off the scaffold where Jarrett actually knocks Rhino through a table, and then he kind of, talks trash to him and says, "Who's the man now?" as Jarrett says it, which I thought was cool because that's Rhino's catchphrase. His catchphrase is, "Who's the man?" Which is kind of a generic thing to say, but it's always really been what Rhino said in the ring. Sometimes it's gotten over. Other times it's been like crickets when Rhino would say that, but I definitely thought that was cool. There's a really awesome spot with Rhino actually spearing or goring Jarrett through the entranceway, which is cool because Rhino actually did that same thing to Jericho when they broke the original SmackDown setup. And after they tore that down, they actually went to a new one with the where they changed the SmackDown song. That's when they started using the Marilyn Manson theme, and they actually had the fist, breaking through the glass. So it was actually Rhino and Jericho that totally destroyed the original SmackDown Just Bring It setup. I think it was like leading up to SummerSlam 2001. But yeah, it was cool, man. Both guys were actually knocked out. The referee said, he's going to count to 10, and if you don't get back into the ring, the match is going to be over. Both guys got back to the ring, and when they got back to the ring, I just thought it was great stuff, man. I thought Rhino, his punches looked great. Jarrett bumped very well for Rhino here. You just had really, really good action in the ring as well. I thought they had good chemistry. I thought Jarrett looked in really good shape here. Great stuff. So, but yeah, a lot of stuff was over the top. Rhino kicks out of the guitar shot. I think Mike Tenay and Don West said, "I'm so sick of seeing that guitar." So yeah, the fans were really all over Jarrett here. So Jarrett definitely got good heat. He got good heat. Fans were chanting "just a jobber" to Jarrett here. So you just get a feeling like a lot of people were just kind of fed up with him always being in the title scene. So yeah, the kick out of the guitar was cool. Rhino actually what was it? Jarrett, he actually kicks out of the gore. Just barely gets his hand up. The referee's like groggy throughout this whole time, so he's not disqualifying anybody. It's kind of unrealistic, but you just got to kind of play into it. Jackie Gata actually came out right before Rhino hit the gore. I thought she looked really hot out there, but for some reason she was against Jarrett. I can't remember why. And I got to say, the ending here was very well done. Rhino actually set up a couple of chairs. Scott D'Amore comes out to distract Rhino, and then Jarrett actually hits the stroke through 2 chairs to put Rhino away. So great stuff. I thought it over-delivered, man. I thought it was cool. So if you like overbooking and you like, violent action, I thought this was good. And probably the most underrated part about it is just, Rhino's punches, his comeback, Jarrett selling. I just thought it was, very well executed, just anytime they were in the ring together. And then the pay-per-view ends with Sting's music hitting, the lights going out, and then you get to see the baseball bat and Sting's coat in the ring, kind of setting up the anticipation for Sting coming out. So I believe Sting actually made his debut the month after at Final Resolution. So definitely setting the tone for Sting and Jarrett. So yeah, I thought this was an awesome pay-per-view. But I think the problem is, like, when we're looking back at TNA pay-per-views, you're always going to find some dry spots. Like, the highlights of the show, Sabu and Abyss was great. I thought Joe and AJ was awesome stuff. Obviously, one of the best X Division matches, one of the best matches in TNA history. Jarrett and Rhino definitely delivered, but I guess everything else is pretty mediocre. Even Christian and Monty Brown, I think it was good, just not great. I didn't think Monty Brown was great throughout the whole match. The match definitely did have its moments, and, Christian always busted his ass in TNA, so I'm not going to hold that against him. And I think the Team 3D match, it is what it is. I think a lot of people are going to be very critical of that match if they ever do see it. It just definitely wasn't a great experience. The stuff with the Generation Next guys, it was good, but it just wasn't what the Ring of Honor stuff was. There's even some weird moments there with Roderick, trying not to hit Alex Shelley's tripod, which is just kind of out of character for a guy like Roderick. So, but there was some really good stuff on the pay-per-view, but it's not a home run from start to finish. It's still, like, even though it might be the best TNA pay-per-view of 2005, you're not getting that consistency that a classic Ring of Honor show would have, like Better Than Our Best, where you're just getting quality stuff from start to finish and no weak points. It's a little bit more inconsistent here, but I gotta say, Samoa Joe and AJ Styles is fucking awesome, man. So if you haven't seen that match yet, definitely check it out. It's really, really friggin' good. I can't believe how good it was. I mean, AJ is just so friggin' awesome. Both guys were great. I mean, that had to be one of the most stiffest matches that we've ever seen in mainstream wrestling. And I'll leave it right there. So that's Turning Point 2005. Definitely one of the best pay-per-views of TNA in 2005. Is it the best? Is it the very best? It's tough to say. Eventually down the road, I'll try to do a list of the top 20, top 25 TNA pay-per-views. But yeah, out of all the Turning Points, I thought this would be the best one to do. It was actually tough to review, though. I got to say, not a lot of the stuff on here was great, but you did have some great stuff on here. So that's pretty much it, guys. And I'm out. All right.